private YouTube. If you do not want your images recorded, I please urge you to turn off your camera. However, if you can at all, please leave your camera on. It is so much more beneficial to both the presenter and to the rest of the crowd to be able to see when folks are laughing, to see those insightful moments, to see the smiles, to be able to see that engagement. That's what Toastmasters is all about. It was never meant to be shared in solo. It was always supposed to be a team endeavor. So if you can keep your cameras on, please do so tonight. It will absolutely help Craig out as he is presenting this evening. After Craig is done this evening, we'll be following that up with the International Speech Finals, the last of our contest this year. The winner tonight will be submitted into the quarterfinals for Toastmasters International, and possibly, just possibly, you may have a semifinalist or even a finalist in your midst tonight. We will find out later this evening who's going to represent District 11 as we move on to the quarterfinals. But before we do that, we will be enthralled by the magic words of Craig Valentine. So who is ready to get going tonight? We excited? We ready to go? There is a definite process for presenting with impact and persuading with ease. Once you master it, you will find doors opening for you that you never knew existed. In this session, you will pick up several tools to keep your listeners leaning on your every word and get them to take the next logical step you want them to take. This process helped our next speaker win the Toastmasters International 1999 World Champion of Public Speaking out of more than 170,000 Toastmasters in 68 countries on over 25,000 contestants. He also used these techniques to become the Mid-Atlantic 3-time Salesperson of the Year for Glencoe McGraw-Hill by achieving 233% of his goal. He was able to run a highly successful employment academy for homeless men in Baltimore City, taking them from homelessness to home ownership. In Craig's tenure, the program had a 100% job placement rate. And he earned the Distinguished Alumni Award from Johns Hopkins University, where he also received his MBA. He's the co-author of the #1 Amazon.com best-selling book, World Class Speaking in Action. Since uncovering this process, he has spoken in 20 countries, including the US, Canada, England, Jamaica, the Bahamas, Taiwan, Qatar, Hong Kong, China, Saudi Arabia, Kuwait, Australia, India, Sri Lanka, Indonesia, South Africa, Japan, and Ireland. Craig is a proud father of 2 amazing children and husband of just 1 wonderful wife. If you're ready to pick up the tools to present with impact, please give it up and help me welcome Craig Valentine.
Wait, I want to go to that view where I can see everybody. Where are they? Okay, I can only see 4 people, but I'll
just click on your on the very top right. There's a view, and go to gallery.
There we go. There you are. Okay, great. Scott, thank you so much. I just spoke to Amazon.com, and there was about 700 people, and they all had their photos off. So I have no idea if I connected. I don't even know if they were there, to be honest. So, but that's just part of being the world champion. I got to be honest, being the world champion is a blessing and a curse. Because if you've been walking towards me in the Chicago airport 2 days after I won the world championship, you would have seen my wife on one side of me and me carrying this gigantic crystal trophy, right? Kathy, just walking through the Chicago airport. And everybody's looking at me like, wow, who is that? Is that, I thought I heard a lady say, is that Denzel Washington? Scott, you didn't have to laugh that hard. But this is what I realized my life would never be the same. This petite lady in a pink dress runs up to me in the middle of the airport. Everybody's watching. And she starts reading the bottom of my trophy. And she said, 1999 World Champion of Public Speaking. Wow. Say some things. And I was speechless. But that's when I realized no matter where I go in life, people are going to say, would you mind saying some things? So I came to a fundamental understanding about my life and really about yours too, Myra. I can no longer get ready to speak. I have to stay ready to speak. My new motto is don't get ready, stay ready. And that's what you're going to do. You're going to be able to pick up some tools to do that today. But before we do that, let me just clear the air. Two things. Number one, I apologize for my profile pic. It was like 15 years ago. I know when I came on, you're looking at me like, what happened to him? So I apologize for that. But the other piece is, I'm glad you at least clapped for me. Because to be honest, some people don't like me. And you know why? Think about my title, 1999 World Champion of Public Speaking. Think about my title. I joined Toastmasters in March of 1998. Got my CTM in March of 1999 and won the World Championship in August of 1999 in my very first try. Now, Alan, you clap, but can you feel the haters on this call? Because there are people who say, Craig, you don't even know what it feels like to lose a contest. I say, yes, I do. I lost the humor speech contest at the club level. And I'll never forget, a seasoned Toastmaster named Alan Mish came up to me afterwards and he said, Craig, you can win the World Championship of Public Speaking. I said, what are you talking about? I just lost the humorous speech contest at the club level. He said, that's okay. He said, the only thing wrong with your humorous speech was that it wasn't funny. Mary, you ever given a speech you wish you could take back, or Marie? I promise you that will happen much less often after today, because you're about to pick up some tools you can use to keep your audience on the edge of their seats and make them glad they came. Are you glad you're here? See, the tools work, right? So first you're going to pick up some tools, Cindy, on how to craft your message. Then you'll pick up some tools on how to deliver your message, and then how to sell your message so people take the exact next step they want them to take. Okay, now, how do you craft a message? Just yell something out. You listen, just because I'm the speaker doesn't mean I'm the only one who has to speak, right? Yell something out. How do you craft a message? What goes into it? What's important about it? Unmute yourself and yell it out. Kathy?
Come up with a good subject matter.
Good subject matter. Good. I don't know who said that, but that was really good.
Talk about something that's important for you.
Something that's important for me, and more importantly, something that's important for them.
What's
well.
a call to action?
And a call to action. Now, let me take those three and run with it. Very good. But the most important part of public speaking is to make sure that you tell a story and make a point. Tell a story and make a point. Let me give you an example. Here I am in Ireland. I'm telling the story here and I'll make the point on the call. Take a look. If you can't hear me for some reason, yell out. In fact, raise your hand if you watched any of the Summer Olympics. Oh, I love the Summer Olympics. But I like the 2012 Summer Olympics even better. Because, do you know who the oldest participant in the 2012 Summer Olympics was? Equestrian. Yes. It was a 74-year-old equestrian from Japan. 74-year-old equestrian from Japan. So my 7-year-old son and I are watching this on TV. And of course, all the commentators kept harping on was the guy's age. Right? They just kept saying, he's 74. Can you believe he's 74? By golly, he's 74. Finally, my 7-year-old son looked up and said, well, how old is the horse? And about a week later, I couldn't get that question out of my mind, so I Googled it. And they asked this man, they said, well, how long will you continue to compete? Guess what his answer was? He said, I can go on forever, but my horse is 15. Yeah, and that's when I realized my son's question was much more relevant than I thought. And Steve, even though he was only 7 years old, my son, not the horse, was only 7 years old at the time, he taught me something very important about self-development, about being great, about being remarkable. Never stop asking questions. Never stop asking questions. The moment you stop asking questions is the moment you stop growing. The moment you stop growing is the moment you fall. Never stop asking questions. So there you have it, right? Tell a story, make a point. What's the point of that story? Never stop asking questions. Let me give you one more example. What do you think is the number one thing that stands between most people living their dreams? Yell some things out. What's the number one thing that stands between most people living their dreams?
Fear.
Fear. Good. What else?
Opportunity.
Opportunity. Good. What else?
Failure.
Failure. Good.
Fear of failure.
Fear of failure.
Attitude.
Hey, somebody said procrastination, exactly. In fact,
Laziness.
it took you a while to answer. But these are all great answers, but they're not the number one thing. The number one thing is not what you think. See, I used to work for an internet company, and I wanted to go full-time into professional speaking. That was my goal. That was my dream. Raise your hand if you have a goal or raise your hand if you want to do anything in life. Me too. So I went to the vice president of this company. He was a young guy, good-looking guy. He looked like a young Brad Pitt. And I said, look, John, I'm going to be leaving because it's always been my dream to be a full-time professional speaker. He said, that's your dream, Craig? I said, yes, it is. He said, well, that's great. I really admire you for having one, but you can't leave. I said, hold on now. What do you mean I can't leave? He said, well, Craig, we've been thinking about it, and we're going to raise your salary up to this. Now, salary means the same thing in Indiana and Kentucky, right? And you see my dilemma. I said, John, this is not a financial decision. This is about my dream. In fact, I call this a dream decision. He said, okay, I understand. I really do. But how about if we raise your salary up to this? I said, this is not a financial decision. This is a dream decision. Do you know he raised it 4 times? I kid you not. He kept saying, we're going to raise your salary up to this. I said, this is not a financial decision. This is a dream decision. Listen to what he said to me. He said, okay, Craig, how about if we raise your salary to well above 6 figures? I said, dreams are overrated. Come on now. 6 figures. Back then, shoot, that's good money today. I could fill up my gas tank for a week on that kind of salary. I said, but John, before I say yes to you, I got to go home and talk to my wife. So I went home to my wife. I said, honey, I don't know what to do. What do you think I should do? What should I do? And my wife looked up at me with her big brown eyes and said, take the money, fool. You like my wife, don't you? But if you've been sitting beside my wife and me just a few moments later on our old beat up black leather sofa with the chocolate chip cookies baking in the background, you would have heard her say something that can absolutely change your life. And I know it because it changed mine. She said, Craig, this is all you ever wanted. Ever since we met, this is all you've ever talked about. I don't care how much they try to compensate you. Your dream is not for sale. That's deep, isn't it? Because most people think the number one thing that stands between them and their dreams is some kind of bad obstacle. That's not it. The number one thing that stands between most people living their dreams is not something bad. It's something good that we settle for, right? A good relationship, a good speech, a good life. Did you realize that sometimes the enemy of the best is the good? So let me ask you a question. Are you too good to be great? I looked at my wife, I said, see, girl, that's why I married you. My dream is not for sale. That's what you said, right? And I walked back in there the next day and I looked at vice president in his eyes and I was firm and I looked him directly in his face and I was bold. And I said to him, my wife said my dream is not for sale. And I left. And that very year, I spoke over 160 times in 44 states and 5 countries. And Mark, I'm happy to say I've been running my mouth ever since, right? Thank you, Rakia. There's nothing special about me, but there's something very special about the advice my wife gave me. No matter how good you are, what you do, don't let that good get in the way of the best. And no matter what's going on in your life at this time, which is a lot probably because of the way the world is, now more than any other time, it's important to remember the words of my wife, that your dream is not for sale. Your dream is not for sale. Stop right there. Tell a story, make a point. What's the point of that story? Your dream is not for sale. Here's one thing I need to make sure you understand. Good speakers speak to be remembered. Great speakers speak to be repeated. So we need to tell a story, make a point. What's the point of that story? Your dream is not for sale. It's going to be repeated, remembered, reposted, retweeted. And when I get the buzz, I get the biz, right? Give you an example. I gave that story in Mysore, India, on the Infosys campus. The next morning, I was in the hotel. They slid a newspaper under my door. I picked it up. It was a big picture of me on the front cover. But look what the headline read. Your dream is definitely not for sale. Don't speak to be remembered, speak to be repeated. So now here's the question. I don't know how to ask this. I'm gonna ask it anyway. Do you now, or have you ever had like a drunk uncle? You know, somebody who, look, some people are looking at me like I am the drunk uncle. But you know, just look at Scott. You know what I'm talking about. Like, you've seen a story just get away from people. You ever seen a story that was all over the place? You ever given one? Me too. And it's because the speaker doesn't start crafting his message in the right place. One of the first things we need to do when we start to craft our message is come up with what I call a foundational phrase. Write that down, foundational phrase. What's the foundational phrase? Don't get ready, stay ready. What's the foundational phrase? Never stop asking questions. What's the foundational phrase? Your dream is not for sale. What do you notice about those phrases? They're short. That's exactly right. Write this down. Your foundational phrase should be fewer than 10 words. Why? Come on to the screen and tell me why. Unmute yourself and tell me. Yell at me. Why?
Easy to remember.
Thank you, Patricia. Easy for who to remember?
The audience and
Who
yourself.
else?
And yourself.
Yeah, and yourself, exactly. But here's the real reason why it should be fewer than 10 words, because it forces you to be crystal clear on what your message is. Make no mistake about it. The number one reason a speaker won't get his message across is he's not crystal clear on what his message is. So fewer than 10 words forces you to be crystal clear. Now, be honest. Have you ever wondered what to keep in a story and what to keep out? What to keep in a speech and what to keep? Write this down. The phrase determines what stays. The phrase determines what stays. If what you say supports your foundational phrase, keep it in. If it doesn't, toss it out. Even if it's good, you got to use it elsewhere. The phrase determines what stays. Now, I want you to tell me what this means. No phrase, no stage. What's that mean? No phrase, no stage. Unmute yourself and yell it out. No phrase, no stage. What's that mean?
No one's going to book you if you're not memorable.
There you go. If you don't have a foundational phrase for your story, don't take it to stage because it's not ready yet. So the question is, where do I take it? The answer is, take it to Toastmasters. Hello? They will give you a foundational phrase. They'll tell you some other things too, but they will give you a foundational phrase. I'll give you an example. Here's a story that I wanted to tell, but I couldn't tell it because I didn't have a point. Take a look. And by the way, this was an honest mistake. Here's an example. You ever gone to a drive-through restaurant, placed your order and been misunderstood? I can't mention the name of this restaurant, but its initials are K, F, and C. So imagine this, you're in my passenger seat, we're driving through the KFC, and I always order 3 thighs. That's the only part of the chicken I like. So we get up to the intercom, and she says, "Welcome to KFC, may I help you?" I said, "Yes, I would like 3 thighs." She said, "Small or large?" And before I could even register it, I just blurted out, "Do you have large thighs?" Yeah, I'm gonna recommend that you never ask anyone that question. And she came back and says, "Yes, we have small and large sides. How may I help you?" But by now I'm just rolling over in embarrassment. And I called a friend of mine that night and he said, "Craig, what you say is not always what they hear." Boom. Guess what I have now? A foundational phrase I can use for every communication and leadership speech I give moving forward. So I want you to have a story, a point, a foundational phrase, fewer than 10 words. The phrase determines what stays, and no phrase, no stage. Now, normally I go into an activity here, but I think you're ready for some more content. Raise your hand if you'd like to add humor to your speeches. Never add humor to a speech. Uncover humor within it. Oh, there's a big difference. When you add humor, it feels forced. When you uncover it, it's organic. It's just there. And even if they don't laugh, your story is still true. So you still move them along. Here's the problem. Where are you going to find your humor? Where are you going to uncover it? Within your stories, within your characters, more specifically within the dialogue between the characters, and even the spaces and faces in between the lines of dialogue. But think about dialogue. Think about the story I told about the vice president giving me more money. Character to character dialogue is what uncovered all that humor, right? Dreams are overrated. Funny line, dialogue. My wife said, take the money, fool. Funny line, dialogue. I said, my wife said, my dream is not for sale. Funny line, dialogue. All the humor from that story came from character to character dialogue. But I want you to know something. That's just the beginning. There are 5 different types of dialogue that I suggest using so you can uncover loads of humor, loads of humor. And in order to uncover the different types of dialogue, I want you to watch a 2-minute video. Now, normally I do this right here live, but I want you to see where the laughs come. So you need to see the audience, okay? And afterwards, we'll look at 4 different types of dialogue, and then we'll include 1 more. Sound good? So here's the 2-minute video, and you'll see 4 different types of dialogue that you can use for the rest of your public speaking life. I think this was in Montreal somewhere. Raise your hand if you feel like sometimes reality hurts. Yeah, now be honest, have you ever stepped on a scale and been forced to face reality? Now, I know what you're thinking. You're probably looking at me like, Craig, what do you know about stepping on a scale? I mean, look at you. You're obviously built like a Greek statue. I appreciate the compliment. But I can only say that because if you had seen me a few years ago, trust me, you would have seen a lot more of me. In fact, you should have been with my wife and me 6.5 years ago. We're taking my 6-month-old daughter, Tori, to her doctor's appointment. Now, raise your hand if you have kids. Then you know the doctor's always going to measure their length and their weight, right? Somebody said height. Let me explain the length when you turn them. Anyway. Doc walks in with his white coat and glasses. He takes Tori's length. Then he looks at my wife and me and he says, since Tori can't stand yet and she can't seem to sit still, we're going to need another method to take her weight. How about this? Why doesn't one of you step out into the hallway and step on the scale with Tori, and then step on the scale without Tori, and we'll take the difference as her weight? Now, I don't know if you've ever been around somebody who just recently gave birth, but my wife was looking at us like, oh, that's a wonderful idea for Craig to do. I said, no problem, I know what I weigh. I jumped up on that scale. I said, give me my daughter. I took my daughter, stripped her down to her diapers. I'm feeling good holding my 6-month-old daughter in my arms. I look down at that scale. I look back at my wife. I look back at that scale. I said, good grief, this is a fat baby. All right, now let's just look at that story and let's just break down the different types of dialogue that you can use and that I used in that story. The first one is called character to character, of course, which is what you heard when one character speaks to another one. But the one that is not used a lot is inner dialogue, right? Thoughts are really funny. The inner dialogue of that story was, I thought, wow, this is a fat baby, right? It's not something I said out loud. It's just something I thought, wow, this is a fat baby. I'm thinking this is a fat baby. If you can tell your story and tell us what you were thinking at certain times, it's going to be hilarious and we're going to connect with you. Here's the key, and this is great freedom for a speaker. If you thought it then, you can say it now. And the line's going to land just like you actually said it out loud. All you need is the right type of stem. And here's the stem. And I was thinking, right? And I was thinking, this is a fat baby. I remember thinking, this is a fat baby. I thought, this is a fat baby. The one stem that I hear a lot when it comes to inner dialogue is, I thought to myself. And I'm like, who else are you going to think to? Right? You don't need that part. It's just, I thought, this is a fat baby. Right? So we can use inner dialogue and let people know what we were thinking. Whenever I'm coaching people, I say, what were you thinking in that moment? Share it. It's going to be funny. It's going to connect. But my favorite type of tool in public speaking is called projected dialogue. Projected dialogue. What is that? It's when you give dialogue to people based on how they were looking at you. Right? I did it in the story. Remember when I said, I don't know if you've ever been around somebody who just recently gave birth, but my wife was looking at us like, that's a wonderful idea for Craig to do. Did my wife actually say that? No, my wife looked at me like, my wife looked at us as if to say, that's a wonderful idea for Craig to do. Hopefully you're starting to see the freedom that you get from using projected dialogue. Based on how somebody was looking at you, you can give them dialogue. You can even give the audience dialogue. I did it in that story, right? When I said, I know what you're thinking, you're probably looking at me like, Craig, what do you know about stepping on a scale? I mean, look at you. You're obviously built like some sort of Greek statue. By the way, when I was in Toronto last week, somebody said, yeah, Venus. I was like, okay, all right, cool. But you see, this is projected dialogue, right? So you can do that. And it's not always for humor. You can also do it for hurt and for heart. For example, when I went to introduce my speaking hero for the first time, I was nervous. Raise your hand if you get nervous before you're about to speak. Yeah. So I went out into the hallway and ran smack dab into my speaking hero. And I said, oh my gosh, I'm Craig Valentine and I won the world championship. So they're allowing me to introduce you today. This is the greatest honor of my career. Thank you so much for being here. You're the man who made me want to get into this business in the first place. Thank you. Thank you. Nothing. He said absolutely nothing. He just looked at me as if to say, psh, you don't belong on the same stage. Now, I don't know what you would do, but I got to thinking he's about to get an introduction he did not expect. Right? So let's just look at that exchange right there. In the real world, nothing was actually said. Remember, he looked at me as if to say, you don't belong on the same stage. And then I thought he's going to get an introduction. He didn't. So the two lines that make the difference in that story were never said out loud, but they were said with his eyes and they were said in my mind. If you can use projected dialogue, trust me, you're going to take your speeches to a whole different level. All right. So we got character to character, inner dialogue, projected dialogue. And then of course, we need a stem, right? So the stem for projected dialogue is she looked at me as if to say, that's a great idea for Craig to do. He was looking at me as if to say, he was looking at me like, you don't belong on the same stage. You're looking at me like, Craig, you're built like a Greek statue. You really are. Okay. So we just need the right type of stem for that. I know this is detailed, but I knew you'd pick it up. The next one is actual audience dialogue. Think about it. When I was in Toronto the other day and I said, you thinking I look like a Greek statue, and the guy yelled out Venus, that was hilarious, but not that many people heard it. So I had to say, he just said Venus, right? And pick that up for the rest of my audience to hear. I did it in this story. Where do we have actual audience dialogue in the story you just saw? When I said, raise your hand if you're a parent, then you know they're always going to measure their length and somebody always says height, right? And then I can say, he just said height. Let me explain the length. When I turn on that becomes the height. So work in the actual audience dialogue too. Like I said before, just because you're the speaker doesn't mean you should be the only one who speaks. Let them be heard. And last but certainly not least, when it comes to these 5 is quotations. Quotations. Let me give you an example. When I was in prison visiting, an inmate came up after my presentation. He said, Craig, I'm getting out of here in a few months. I'm feeling good about life and I'm back on the right track. I said, well, you know, there's a quote by Will Rogers that says you might be on the right track, but if you just stand there, you'll be run over. Boom. So you can bring people in. Just be careful who you bring. Because some bad people have said some good things. So be careful who you bring. But those are the 5 different types of dialogue that you can use. So you have some ideas on how to craft your message. Let's look at how to deliver it. One of the things I want to make sure I get across to you is it's not just about the lines, it's also about the spaces and faces in between the lines. Raise your hand if you've been in a contest before. All right. When I did win at the club level, and then I won at the area level, I was going to the division level, and they were going to hold the contest at the Red Cross building in Baltimore City. So I get into the building, I go to the elevator. I'm going to go from the first floor to the 3rd floor. But when I get on the elevator, a guy gets on next to me. He looked like he could be a minister or a preacher or something like that. And the moment he saw me, he says, you're in the contest, aren't you? I said, yes. And Scott, without saying anything else, he reached into his pocket, pulled out a bottle of oil, unscrewed it, dipped his finger in it, and started walking towards me. And then dabbed me in the forehead. And before I could say anything, he just looked at me and he said, "I've just anointed you." I said, "Say what?" He said, "Yeah, I'm a man of faith. What I just did was very important. I've just anointed you. You're going to be the one who makes it." Now, I got to be honest, I had no idea what was going on. And plus, I'm black. So I was like, am I ashy? What's happening here? Why? But he just kept saying, "I've anointed you. I've anointed you. I've anointed you." Thankfully, the third floor came. And I hopped off that elevator as fast as I could. And I got into the contest, everybody's speaking. And then it's my turn. And I'm going and flowing. And in the middle of my contest speech, Cindy, my mind goes blank. This had never happened to me before. I had no idea what to do. And I quit. And I just started looking around the room. And then my eyes latched onto his. And at that exact moment, everything came rushing back. And I picked up where I left off. Now, here's the interesting thing about where I lost my mind. I was actually supposed to pause. Yeah, I don't know if I was supposed to pause that long, but I was supposed to pause. So I picked up where I left off and I finished. And then the contest master came up afterwards and said, "And the winner of today's division contest is Craig Valentine." And all these people rushed the stage. And you know what the first thing they said to me was, "Man, the reason you won, that pause. Oh my goodness, what an amazing pause. What a pause, what a pause." And all I could think was, well, you know, I am anointed. Ooh. You know, he never claimed me. You got a lot of people who say, "I helped Craig Valentine win the world championship." No, you didn't. He actually helped me, but he never claimed me. In fact, David, I've never seen him in my life again. He just came into my life, lifted it, and left. Isn't it appropriate that we met in an elevator? Because he met me at one level and left me at another. Now let's stop right there. It wasn't all about the lines. It was about this. It was about this. It was about that. It was about this. 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 Like the spaces and faces in between the lines are what really makes the story and the speech work. I follow Dale Carnegie's advice on this. If you're under your own emotions, when you go back and relive the story, all the right facial expressions will come, all the right gestures will come, everything will be organic. Okay, so now I need a volunteer. We're talking about delivery here. I need a volunteer, and there might be a really big prize in it for you. So raise your hand if you're willing to volunteer. Okay, raise your hand if you're willing to go second. Let me go with Alan. Alan has his hand up. Alan, go ahead and unmute yourself. Alan, how you doing?
Oh, I'm excellent. This is a fabulous speech program.
Well, thank you. Well, you went from the air. Where did you go? There you go.
Here.
Okay. You're like floating in the air. I love that. You're on cloud 9. All right. So, Alan, I want you to pretend we're in person and we're in front of maybe 250 people, right? So forget about the camera. We're in person in front of 250 people and you are the speaker. And you want to find out how many of the audience members have ever been to Baltimore. So what would you say to that group of 250 people? I want you to say it how you would say it to them, even looking at them.
How many out there have been to Baltimore?
All good. Last week, I had to stop somebody who was going into his own keynote. So thank you for stopping right there. That was really good. But how would you like a tool, stick with me, Alan, how would you like a tool to use to make a deeper connection with your audience than you've ever felt before? If so, raise your hand.
That sounds good.
All right, good. Then Alan, this is a slight edge principle, which means it's a slight change in the way you do things. But if you do it throughout your entire presentation, what a difference in how they'll feel your message, not just hear you, but feel your message. So Alan, when your audience members leave your speech, hopefully at the end, do you want them to leave thinking, whoa, I really felt like I was part of a group? Or do you want them to leave thinking, whoa, it really felt like Alan was speaking directly to me? What do we want, A or B?
Oh, B.
Yeah.
He was speaking right to me. Yes.
Exactly. So Alan, how many people did you just speak to?
Oh, just the ones that have been to Baltimore.
All right. You spoke to everybody. How many people should you speak to? Raise your hand if you know the answer. Raise your finger if you know the answer. One. So how can Alan rephrase his question? Stay with me, Alan. I'm going to have another person. How can Alan rephrase his question to make it sound and feel grammatically like he's speaking to one rather than 250? Unmute yourself and let me know. What can he say? Cindy?
Have you ever been to Baltimore?
There you go. Have you been to Baltimore? Can you imagine? Should you, would you, could you? Singular grammatically. Write this down. It will change your public speaking life. Speak to one, but look to all. Speak to one, but look to all. Alan, there are far too many speakers speaking to far too many people far too often. And you'll hear them. They'll say things like ladies and gentlemen and friends and folks and boys and girls and societal members and members of the committee. You might as well be saying friends, Romans, country. Stop it. Speak to one. Now, have you ever heard a speaker say, now some of you might be thinking? Guess what? Guess what, Patricia? There is no some of you. Now you might be thinking. Or you've heard a speaker say, now many of you probably came to the conclusion. Guess what? There is no many of you. Now, in case you've come to the conclusion, feel the difference? Speak to one, but look to all. So stick with me, Alan. You're gonna get a test that you can give to make sure that you can take it up on stage. It's called the hallway test. Take a look at this, Alan, and stay with me. Here we go. A hallway test. Speak to one, but look to all. Now I'm gonna give you a test. This is something that you can do to make sure that you're speaking to one, but looking to all. It's what I call the hallway test. So Heather and I, here's how it goes. If you can walk by one person in the hallway and you can say it, then you can take it up on stage. So Heather and I, we're going to just walk by each other in the hallway and just see what happens. How many of you have ever been to Baltimore? Unless she's civil, we got a problem. Now, watch this. We're going to walk by each other again. Let's see what happens. Have you ever been to Baltimore?
Yeah, I used to live near.
How happy to grace. Now, you see the difference? If I can say it there, I can take it up on stage. All right. So, Alan, you have the lesson?
Yes.
All right. So, again, you're in front of 250 people. Go ahead and rephrase your question. Here we go. By the way, before Alan starts, let's give him a hand because he's doing this. Let's give him a hand. Encouragement. Yes. Here we go, Alan.
Have you been to Baltimore before?
Okay, good. Just make sure you don't forget the look to all part, right? Because I was in Toronto last week and we were in person. And I said, do you have the lesson? And he walked up to one person in the audience and said, you ever been to Baltimore? Huh? How about you? You been to Baltimore? You look very Baltimore. He's going to everybody in the whole place. So do the same thing, Alan, but just look to everybody. Same exact content, just look to everybody.
Have you ever been to Baltimore before?
Good. Or raise your hand if you've ever been to Baltimore. Either way, but we're looking to all. Speak to. So let's do it. Let's do it right here. Raise your hand if I'm going to do it. Raise your hand if you've ever been to Baltimore. Good. So now it should feel like you're speaking directly to him or her. Let's give Alan a hand. Thank you, Alan. I had one person and he just thought I meant to say you louder. So he just kept saying, how many of you? I said, no, that's not what I want. Then he got his Lou Rawls voice with like, how many of you? I said, no, that's not it. You got to get the content right. Okay, speak to one, but look to all. So Alan's looking at me like, where's my prize? I've got one. It's a surprise, but I've got one for you. So Alan Schmidt, I'm gonna write your name down. I got it for you. You're gonna love it. Okay, so you have some ideas on how to craft your message, how to deliver your message. Let's look at how to sell your message so people actually take, what is that? Okay, yeah. I don't want to go into any rooms.
Just close it out. Just close it out. Sorry.
Ooh, no problem at all. I thought you were putting me in my own breakout room so nobody can hear me anymore. All right, so you have some ideas on how to craft your message, how to deliver your message. Let's look at how to sell it. Nod your head if you agree with me on this. When you're in speaking, you're in sales. When you're in leadership, you're in sales. When you're in parenting, you're in sales. The best speakers embrace it. The least effective ones avoid it. And here's the sad part. All you have to do is master one formula. And this is it. Never sell a product, always sell what? The results. Never sell a service, always sell the results. If you're in leadership, never sell an idea, always sell the results. You can sing along now. If you're in leadership, never sell change, always sell the results. If you're going for an interview, never sell yourself. You know, I've got 15 years of experience. Nobody cares. Always sell the results. Case in point, decades ago, many decades ago, I went to buy my first car ever in life. And I went to the dealership. And the salesperson came up to me. He said, "Are you looking at that car?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "Great. Let me tell you about it. This car has these types of brakes, this type of engine, this type of window." What's he trying to sell me? The car. I just said, never sell a product. Even if you're at home, I want you to say it out loud. Never sell a product, always sell the results.
Results.
So I said, "Thank you." So I said, "Thank you, but no thank you. I'm not interested." I went to a different dealership, same day, different salesperson, same car. Now, Cindy, I got to be honest, this guy must have anticipated where I was emotionally at that point in my life, you know, young and single and looking to mingle. Feel free to use that one. Feel free to use that one, Mark. So he walks up to me, he says, "Are you looking at that car?" I said, "Yes, sir." He said, "You're going to look good in that one." He said, "Yeah, man, you're going to be flying down the road. The wind's going to be blowing through your hair. And the girls, let me tell you, the girls will be all over you." What do you think I did? I said, "Where do I sign?" Right? He made the sale not because he sold me the car, but he sold me what? The results. And he lied. I was lonely in that car. Just me and my payment. So don't lie, but definitely don't sell the product, the service, idea, change, or yourself. Always sell the results. Raise your hand if a year from now you'd like to be at least 3 times better than the speaker you are today. Good. Then for absolutely free, for no fee, you can go to one of my websites, which is 52speakingtips.com. That's 52speakingtips.com. And every week for a year, you're going to get an audio lesson from me. And at the end of that year, you're going to be at least 3 times better than the speaker you are today. Now stop right there. What was the result? 3 times better, right? What was the resource? The website, right? Which one did I mention first? Laura said, free. Free is what you meant. I know we like free. No, but it's the result. So here's the addition to that formula. Never sell a product, always sell the result. Always put the result before the resource. In leadership, always state the result before the request. Because if I did it the other way around, the way most people do it, it would have sounded like this. Raise your hand if you'd like to receive 52 emails from me. Thank you, Mark. I don't think my opt-in rate would be as high. Okay? So never sell a product, always sell the result. But there's something else we can do to make sure that we sell our message. You're going to hate me for this, but I'm going to make you do it anyway. I'll make you do it anyway. Right now, and it's hot in here. It's like 98 degrees, so I'm not going to mind. I want you right now to change 12 things about your own appearance. Change 12 things about your own appearance. I'll wait. All right, hold on. When he went for his belt, I had to change the rules. So hold on for a second now. Hold on. Listen, change any 2 things about your own appearance. You can put your collar up or down, you know, change any 2 things about your own appearance. I saw you, Marcy. I saw what you did there. All right. Okay, now stop. Now, normally in person, I'd have people partner up and turn around and try to figure out what was changed and this and this and that. But what do you think that activity would be about? What do you think that activity is about? Yell something out. What would that activity be about? Laura?
Paying attention.
Paying attention, okay? And that's when I always tell them it's definitely not about that. But, but it could be. It certainly could be. That's a good answer. And then they usually say it's about observation, Absolutely not. It's about one word that begins with a C. Can you think of what it is?
Change.
Thank you,
Change.
Cindy. Thank you, Patricia. Change. Think about it. I know how you looked at me, but how did you feel when I said change 12 things about your own appearance?
Confused.
Yeah. Scott was looking at me like, Craig, I don't even have 12 things on. Hey, I didn't know it was that kind of workshop. Don't even laugh. Some people look way too anxious to start taking all 12. I said, hold on now. I know you've been cooped up, but come on now. How did you feel when I said change any 2 things? Much better, right, Joseph? You could do it. Then I said change. Now I could easily say change one more thing. You could do it again. So here's what I guarantee you. I could have kept saying change one more thing, change one more thing, change one more thing until you got up to 12. You would have found a way. You would have been okay. So what was the problem with my request?
Too much, overwhelming.
Too much, too soon. The leadership principle behind this is change small and change often. Don't change everything at once, but change small and change often. What's the public speaking implication? Here it is. Too many speakers try to get across too much information in too little time. Have you seen it? Have you done it? Me too. In fact, Patricia, it's so prevalent that there's an old speaker proverb that says, when you squeeze your information in, you squeeze your audience out. So understand that less is more. A confused mind says no, but a clear mind says go. So I'd rather give them 3 things they can do than 10 things that they can't. Okay, so you have some ideas on how to craft your message, how to deliver, and how to sell it. One last thing about selling your message. This might blow your mind, but you should never finish a speech with the Q&A. Never, ever finish a speech with the questions and answers. Why? Yell something out. Why?
You can't control it.
Scott, you can't control it. And people remember best what they hear first and what they hear last. Ask me how I know this. The best 2-day management seminar I ever gave in my life, I ruined it at the end. And you know why? Because I asked the wrong question. I said, are there any questions? I never forget, a lady in the front row looked up and said, yes, I love the reinforcement techniques you gave us to reinforce the behaviors of our employees. I'm just wondering, do you think these same reinforcement techniques would work with my horses? Yeah, Patricia. And that's not the worst part. The worst part was a guy stood up in the back and said, nay, I thought it was the craziest thing I'd ever seen. But I'm telling the story now. And no, look, Kathy's looking at me like, well, how old was the horse? No, we're not going to go there. We're not going back there. All right, so you have some ideas on how to craft your message, how to deliver it. You have some ideas on how to sell it. Just look at where we are. Let's go ahead and close shop. But in order to close shop, I want to give away a prize. I want to give away a big prize. But you got to understand what's being given away. If you had picked up my phone in the year 2000, you would have heard a woman from the Michigan Consolidated Gas Company say to me, by the way, Scott, I do have until the hour, right? Okay, just okay. You would have heard a woman from the Michigan Consolidated Gas Company say to me, Craig, we want you to come out here and speak. And for 45 minutes, we're going to pay you $3,500. Now, this is the year 2000. I was the world champion, but I was still a newbie speaker. So I was very excited, but what else do you think I was? Scared to death. And to make things worse, they flew me out first class. I get to the airport, they swept me up with a black limo. Took me out, wined and dined, drove me over to a 5-star hotel, swept me up the next morning in that same black limo, drove me over to the event. As I'm walking up on stage, the lady who convinced her higher-ups to hire me tucks into my jacket pocket a check for $3,500. Alan, I'm going out of my mind. And I looked that audience directly in the eyes and I gave them a $150 speech. Yeah, Mark, I failed miserably. It was so bad that the lady who convinced her higher-ups to hire me, I mean, she really went to bat for me the same way they'll go to bat for you. By the time I stepped off that stage, she wouldn't even look me in the eyes. Kathy, I was absolutely devastated. Even the limo driver was looking at me like, man, I still got to take you back? That's her. Now, that was the year 2000. Fast forward 22 years to today. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm saying this because you know where I came from. But my rehire rate today exceeds 91%. You know what that means? That means if you hired me once, chances are very good you're going to bring me back again, Mark Mandel. 91% of the time. But that begs a question. What made the difference? What made the difference between me being on a company's wall of shame? They never want to see my face again. And you know what, Myra, they're not going to. You know why? They don't even exist anymore. I think I put them out of business. I was that bad. But what made the difference between that and companies calling me up today saying, Craig, we want you to come out and speak. We're willing to work around your schedule. When are you free? I say, I'm not free. I'm available. Okay? Now, name some things. What do you think made the difference? Yell some things out. What do you think made the difference? Scott?
Stopped worrying about what you look like, started worrying about what they got.
Really about the audience. Exactly. Cindy?
Having a foundational phrase. So your message was clear.
Yeah, fewer than 10 words. Kathy?
No Q&A at the end.
No Q&A at the end. Yeah. Like, why did they hire you? Right? That's the question they got to ask.
Why am I here again?
So those are great answers. And my good friend, one of my best friends in the world is Darren LaCroix. And he always says stage time, stage time, stage time. But I said, Darren, what if you get a whole lot of stage time, but you're practicing the wrong thing? Couldn't you be reinforcing negative habits? And sometimes that's hard to undo. So I'll tell you exactly what made the difference. After my embarrassment in the year 2000, which you shouldn't have to go through, and you won't if you listen closely, I rededicated myself to the art of public speaking. My coach was charging me $4,000 per day. Yeah, I went through year after frustrating year just trying to figure out a process that works. I'm like, just give me a process that works some of the time. And I'm happy to say I got a process that works basically all the time. And I'm even happier because I was able to bottle up this whole process and put it into a system called the Speak and Prosper Academy. Everything that made the difference between where I was then and where I am today is in this system. Imagine what it can do for you. However, online right now, it's $797. But I'm going to give one away to somebody who answers one question correctly. You're going to get lifelong access to my academy. Are you ready? All right, here's the question. Here's the premise. Oh, by the way, you can either answer it out loud or you can chat it. The first one who answers it first and correctly gets lifelong access to the academy. Here's the premise. Specifics stick. Let's see if it's true. Patricia Fripp, who was my coach, taught me something very important. She said, before she charged me, she said, Craig, people won't remember what you say as much as they'll remember what they see when you say it. So here's the question. The lady who ran up to me in the Chicago airport and started reading the bottom of my trophy, what was she wearing?
Pink dress.
Yeah.
Marie, is it Mary or Marie?
Marie.
Whatever it is you are the winner. Marie is the winner. I'm going to write that down. Marie. Let's give her a hand. Congratulations. Whoops. Now, it is available. Okay. Marie won, but it is available. It's $797. But because you've been so good to me, I'm going to do you a favor and I'm going to waive the shipping. All right. Let's keep it moving and let's go. No, listen, it's $797, but once a year, I actually offer it for $497. Today, I'm not going to even do that. I'm going to do something I don't do. It's not going to be $797. It's not going to be $497. For 10 people, the first 10 people who take action, it's $297 for lifelong access. Okay, how do you get it? Here's all you have to do. You can use the QR code or you can go to speakandprosperacademy.com within the next 20 minutes. And if you do that, I'll honor the price as long as you're in the first 10. Okay, speakandprosperacademy.com. Well, let me just close up and be right on the top of the hour. Hopefully you've written that down. Has it been helpful? All right, so as I close, I just want to say this. I'm going to go into my emergency landing. One of the things you need to do as a speaker is you got to be there before you get there, right? And when I was an events planner in the early 1900s, in the 1990s, mid 1990s, one of my jobs was setting up the stage for the speaker. Can you imagine all the while wanting to be the speaker? And so I would go into these auditoriums and tape down the power cords, and I would set up the chairs, and I would set up the lectern, and I would move more chairs. They used to call me the chairman because I used to move so many chairs. But it never failed, Marie. Every single time I walked into one of those empty auditoriums, I would walk up front, I would stand behind the lectern, and I would look out at that empty audience and imagine that one day people would come to see me. And I always said the same thing to myself when I stood behind that lectern. I said, today I move the chairs. Tomorrow I move the audience.
Give it up for Craig Valentine, everybody. Unmute yourselves and let's give Craig some love. Absolutely fantastic. That was remarkable.
Feels good. Feels good. Thank you.
Absolutely remarkable.
That feels
Thank
good.
you so very much from District 11. Thank you so very much for being here. There is a possibility you will come back one of these days because, I don't know, maybe we know some people that will be in office in the future. So thank you so very much for being here. Such great words. Everyone wrote down his academy, speakandprosperacademy.com. Make sure